Talk Studio, kicking off a brand new week. Joining us now in the studio, John McKay, the President and CEO of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association. Morning, John. Thanks for coming on.
Morning. Glad to be here.
All right, so something that we're all running into are these shortages of products and supply chain issues that really are plaguing the entire world. I mean, it's not just Mississippi, it's not just the country, it's the entire world. And that is something that has got to be top of mind for your members in the manufacturing sector. In particular, what are they saying? What are you hearing?
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's a challenge across the sector. And the most interesting thing about it is manufacturing is doing well. I mean, orders are up. Production capacity is where we need it to be. But the supply chain is obviously a critical factor. And one of the things that most people don't think about is when the pandemic really hit, people changed their consumption from services and goods to pretty much just goods. People weren't traveling. They weren't going to the, salon. They weren't going to all of the services that we consume in a normal time. And so all of that demand shifted to goods. And when you do that, you have supply chain shortages, and then all of these goods trying to get to their ports of destination created chaos.
Yeah. And so you've got that coupled with the higher cost of inputs.
That's right, inflation. And
it's kind of a toxic elixir for the consumers, shall we say.
Well, and then the other side of that coin for manufacturers is the workforce.
Yeah.
I mean, so you have critical shortages of the necessary inputs, and then the folks that you depend on to actually build your product, that's in short supply, and all of these things are converging at one time, and it's really creating some bottlenecks in the system.
And the other thing that we hear a lot about, John, from the manufacturing community, and it's not just manufacturers, retailers as well, of course, is the increased cost of containers.
Yes.
So explain that for our audience.
Yeah. And I'll go back to, and we'll just say normal time. So normally what you would have is obviously you have components and raw materials that may come from other places. So a lot of that is from Asia. Mm-hmm. They would come over, and those shipping containers per trip from Asia to America were running in the $2,000 to $3,000 range per trip.
Yeah.
So that's pretty reasonable, and that was built into everybody's cost models. Obviously, the just-in-time supply chain method is ubiquitous across manufacturing. So once you had the bottlenecks at the ports, these companies in the shipping industry, it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
The demand started skyrocketing, so they were having to charge more for their service. And now it's gone from that $2,000 to $3,000 to $22,000 to $25,000 per container. And you can only imagine, multiply that out across your, what you're ordering. That is significant cost increases.
Yeah. So, and these containers, we should point out, these are storage. I guess just objects that are used to transport across the ocean.
That's right.
On sailing vessels, yachts, etc., barges, and they come in, they land at the port, and then they're unloaded, put on trucks, and then sent out to their final destination.
That's right. And what some people don't realize is they think those big boxes are just something you put on the back of trucks. They are not. They're very specific for the type of transportation. Yeah. So they get on the ships, they get offloaded typically onto rail containers, some on trucks, and then they're taken to a nearby warehouse, usually within a 50-mile radius of the port. So there's an offload there, and then they have to be unloaded to your typical tractor-trailer trucks or maybe additional rail. But again, those containers are very specialized, and they're all within that shipping container ecosystem. So they have to go back to the port. They have to go back empty. So it's a lot of logistical challenges, and then you add the cost factor on top of it, and it's really challenging.
And there used to be sort of a nominal cost that the seller or the end user of those products, it could be a manufacturer for components and raw materials, would factor into their pricing model. But now it's becoming a significant aspect of it. In some cases, more than the material itself.
Absolutely. And what you have now is those shipping containers are now essentially in a storage area on those ports property.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there for months at a time. Where I was reading an article the other day, I think it was an 8-day turnaround to get the goods out of the shipping container and into the transportation network. Now that time horizon is up to 35 days.
Yeah. So all of that is just causing as a ripple effect throughout the entire supply chain, and that's causing problems.
That's
so,
right.
All right. So we got the busy holiday season coming up, and of course, manufacturers in a just-in-time environment, manufacturers would be hard at it right now, producing
Absolutely.
products, shipping those, getting those just in time for the holidays.
Well, and again, back to this whole trickle-down effect of the transportation issue. Typically, you would have those orders for Christmas time in the summer.
Right.
They would produce them and get them basically right next to a retailer very quickly.
Yeah.
But now, because of the supply chain being drawn out, you're having production just now. Well, if you're producing something that's going to go all over the world, those items might not get to the stores until February.
And for many retailers, they need the product now because this is when many of them do the majority of their business during this peak shopping season.
Yes,
so it's all of it just is an issue. So what are you hearing from, I guess, our state government, if they can do anything about this to try to relieve some of this pressure, and then from the federal government? I know you're tracking that, so what's going on?
So I'll kind of take that in reverse order.
Okay.
We have been working on the federal side with our federal delegation, which has been tremendous, trying to help with this need. And one of the things that they have talked about investing in is our domestic capacity for chips.
Okay.
So semiconductors and chips that are necessary in all of our appliances and vehicles and all the things we depend on. I think that would go a long way. I think we need to stop depending on the Asian countries that we have been in the past. In general, for almost national security.
Yeah.
We need to bring that domestic. So I think that's an important aspect. Some of the things that they've been doing with especially the West Coast ports, requiring them to go 24/7, lifting some of the regulations with the trucking times that people are able to transport goods.
Yep.
And then back home at the state level, I think we're trying to look at things we can do because obviously we're limited. But I think the most important thing we can do, two things at the state level that we can do to help this situation, is continue investments in our infrastructure. That's important to get our rail and our road networks up to speed and competitive with the rest of the country. And then number two is continue to invest in our workforce development. That's always been a major deficiency for industries in Mississippi, and a lot of that has to do with rural areas of the state. It's tough to attract and retain workers.
Sure. But
right now, coming out of this pandemic, it's something that I've never seen in my 15 years of doing this. It's almost as if the people have vanished. So where we were at a deficiency before, it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether it's childcare or other opportunities, or quite frankly, some folks just don't want to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great before the pandemic.
That's right.
It's just gotten worse.
Way
essentially.
worse.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got anecdotes from some of my members where folks come in, go through the interview process, get hired, show up for the first day, and they make it 2 hours, and they're gone.
Unbelievable.
And that's not sustainable.
I'm still scratching my head, John, trying to figure out, well, how are they eating? Where? I mean, is it? I can't find enough government safety nets, if you will, to offset work.
I'm in your exact same boat. I've done the math. There is not enough benefit to pay all of these people that were in the workforce to not be there. So there's something going on out there. We're steadily looking into it. But I think if we just back away from trying to find that answer, at the end of the day, we need better skilled employees that are ready to work. And that's in the soft skills, just showing up on time, drug-free, able to take direction from a supervisor, those simple things. And then our technical skills. Yeah. And we're really ramping up through Accelerate Mississippi and the Community College Network, our IHL institutions. We're all coming together. It's just going to take time. Yeah. And so I guess we got a couple of minutes left here. What would you like to see the state government do with respect to that workforce development? Already a fair amount invested in that. Absolutely. So right now we have a historic opportunity with $1.8 billion of federal money. And now we can debate whether that's a good thing or not, but it's here. Yeah. So I would hope that we would invest some of that into boosting our technical skills, shortening that trade gap that we have right now. It's something we can really do.
Well, hopefully they're listening, and we can get on that, because I know it's an issue. And I want to say one final thing to your comment about just some of these soft skills. How come that ain't being taught at the home? And I know that's another philosophical debate. Why do we got to teach adults that?
That's right. You're absolutely right.
John, thanks so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. I want to find out how we fare through this busy Christmas season.
Absolutely. I'll be back. Thank you.
You got it. John McKay, President and CEO of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association, has been our guest.